All right, everybody, it's Manny and Jason coming to you live from Black Hat Day One. Day one was an incredible day. I mean, we got to meet with some security professionals that are really leading the charge around the world. They talked about everything from business resilience to, of course, AI, the future of cybersecurity, and Manny and I both get to take some two really different tracks, a little bit divergent from each other, but really intersected well. We get a chance to chat about them after our sessions. I took a CISO Summit, which the CISO Summit is a invite-only, one-day forum designed for security executives and cybersecurity leaders from global organizations and the government to really get together and talk about the big picture, think tank type stuff, where we're talking about strategies and advanced threat intelligence, risk and governance, and those conversations that you're having at a board level about business risk and nation state risk. And Mandy, you attended an AI summit today. Talk to us a little bit about what that AI summit looked like.
Absolutely. So for the AI Summit, what we got to do was really talk about what is the current state, what is the emerging technologies for AI, both in the threat actor space, on the things that we need to be able to defend and mitigate our risk against, but also from a technology, from a vendor space, from an execution capability space. Because what we find more and more is that AI is driving forward. And we have to always be making adjustments to it. So this AI Summit was all about understanding where that trajectory is so that we can make business decisions to make sure we maintain and increase our resiliency.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. You know, some of the conversations obviously in the CISO Summit revolved around AI. A theme was that the frontier model AI tsunami is real. There's going to be a period of time within the next 3 to 6 months where organizations are struggling with these attack vectors and the threats coming at us. And, you know, one of the big themes that I picked up from day one at the CISO Summit was AI is forcing function, not just technology implementation. When I say function, I mean, it's a lot of the long delayed activities that we haven't been doing over time. The foundational items like managing our assets and knowing our assets and knowing the priorities around them, managing governance throughout your organization and risk management, identity management, data governance. A lot of those foundational basics that we've been kicking the can down the road for a very long time are about to really hit us fast, right? They're presenting major risks in this day of AI enabling the business and these frontier models becoming more available because there's a catch-up period for open source AI. Right? There's a catch-up period where they're starting to catch up to a lot of these frontier models and they're keeping pace. So that creates a threat.
No, it absolutely does. And we've heard a lot of the same in the AI Summit. As part of the AI Summit, there was a lot of that same throughput of this legacy technology, the technical debt that we carry, a lot of the security hygienes and basics. We need to hurry up and get those cleaned up because we need to expand and go beyond that. Having the basics structured gives us a level of protection. But then one of the items we really talked about was speed to execution. At one point in time, we were talking about at a time where sometimes you would have days to respond. Then it was hours to respond. Now it's minutes and even seconds to respond. And it's got to get to the point that the only way to combat machine speed attack is with machine speed response. Getting closer to that.
Yeah, that was a huge piece of the conversations for us as well. The tempo of security has changed is really the headline there, right? The threat landscape is evolving so fast and the threat actors are enabled by AI. And hey, at the end of the day, those threat actors aren't going to be waiting around for a policy or a governance plan. They really don't care, right? So at the end of the day, we need to be catching up as organizations and become organizations who can defend at machine speed as well. So, you know, the days of making decision by committee are slowly disappearing because we need to make those decisions fast for the organization and get to the point where we can be protecting at machine speed.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we're very cautious and it was very much apparent within the AI Summit was this idea of being able to execute at machine speed, but still keep human in the loop. Having this human oversight, this interaction, the ability at machine speed to get the information, the telemetry necessary to execute and make a meaningful, honest decision, but still have the human decision component. is being able to understand that every action that's performed by an AI has meaning, has weight, has some form that needs to be accounted for. And that really needs still that human oversight in order to be able to do that. There were some components that for very easy or minor executions. Even now we do a manual, the playbooks, those still apply at machine speed. But when we start to get into impactful, business impacting decisions that need to be made, entrusting a computer to be able to make that decision on your behalf is not the way that we can move forward.
Yeah. Trust was a big theme in the CISO Summit as well. And it was trust along a whole bunch of different avenues, right? Traditional trust in the models isn't sufficient. So to your point, you need a loop or human on the loop, scenarios and embedded into your process. They were talking about embedding, because AI is starting to do so much more in the CI/CD pipeline for software developers in the SDLC process, making sure you have human in the loop there. But the other side is trust has to move deeper into those foundational items I talked about. Data is king. If you can't trust the integrity of your data, you're in trouble, right? At the end of the day. So data governance was such a big piece that it's the whole garbage in, garbage out model, where we have to start talking about data hygiene and data integrity and privacy and confidentiality of your data, and really getting back to those basics there, because that's what's going to be feeding these models. And if the data hygiene isn't good, the output is going to be very poor.
Absolutely. One of the items that we really talked a lot about was this idea when you talk about using an AI, when we talk about an agent, there are three main components of that. We have the intelligence, the model engine itself. Then we have, that's the brains of it. That's the mythos, the GPT engine that we're running. But then we get into the harness. The harness is all the connections into all of the ancillary systems that we give the system access to. And then it's the prompting. It's what are we putting in and telling the system how to do. We can swap the engine out, and the engine's going to act the way that it's intended to act, but it's the harness and it's the way that we present data to the engine that's going to determine exactly what kind of an output we get. And it falls exactly to what you're saying, is that we need control of our data estate, and we need to know it inside and out.
And there's an importance to the harness, because the harness is what's bringing context to the entirety of the output. It's where you start putting in the culture of your organization, the guardrails that you need within your organization, the risk tolerance. You really start defining, how that output is given back to you, and the rules of the road and the guardrails. So super, super important. I'm not sure if, any of your sessions covered this, but there was a session that I had, and it really opened my eyes to the speed of what's happening, both from a commercial, but an open source side of the aisle. And the session was around open source security is everyone's responsibility. And it talked a lot about stressing the fact that we really need to be looking at open source throughout our entire organization, right? And where that lives. Think about things like software bill of materials, because you may have open source embedded in software that you didn't even know had open source components to it. And not looking at that and looking at it from a vulnerability perspective, we're going to be in trouble, because here's what these AI models are going to be doing. They're going to find the best exploit path possible. And then they're going to focus on that. And they're going to chain things together within your environment to be able to get to the crown jewels. And AI is really good at that, really good at taking vulnerabilities across the board, chaining them together, moving throughout your organization, and finding the crown jewels fast. So if you're not thinking about open source, not thinking about where that could be embedded within your organization, whether it's open source tools that you're already using or open source embedded in commercial products that you already have.
Yes.
Really doing an inventory. Again, foundations. Inventory your assets, inventory what you have, so you have visibility into where there could be risk.
Yeah, no, that was absolutely one of the topics of conversation, especially when we started to talk about asset inventory from an application perspective. When we talk about deeper embedded supply chain risk, that's the third party and fourth party risk of understanding not only the vendors that we're dealing business with, but then the open source tools that are potentially feeding the application that we're utilizing, whether it be a SaaS platform, whether it be something we're using natively within the environment. And you're absolutely right. The what AI models are doing now, it's not to say that the AI engines are doing something that a seasoned threat actor can't do. But what it does is it says, instead of having a seasoned threat actor take 1,000 hours to figure something out, it allows them to do it in a way that's very, very quick. And then it's replicatable. And that's the scary part, right? So once we find that potential door in, then it's looking, let's go globally. Let's scan the entirety of the internet, find other points of entry that are taking this novel approach before you have the ability for traditional patch management to come into play. It's understanding these novel approaches and being able to combat those at scale and at speed.
At machine speed is what they're doing, right? So it's an insane speed these days. Now, all right, I had a couple of moments, but there was one big one for me. That was that really hit you in the face, oh my God, type session that I had. His session was titled, "Is vulnerability-free code a myth, or is it the future security baseline?" And he argued that there will be a day where we'll be dealing with vulnerability-free software, right? But that doesn't make your environment vulnerability-free, right? Because coding is going to get better. The vulnerabilities within software is going to get better. But that doesn't mean they're on exploit paths. So be careful, right? Now, the big really hit you in the face comment was there's going to be a 3 to 6 month period of time, maybe even 8 months, that once open source catches up to the mythos and big thing here. To Anthropic, mythos is old school. It's 7 months old. It's on a shelf now, and they consider it ancient. Wow. Think about that for a minute, right? Because the models that they have right now far exceed what mythos can do. And they're arguing that, yes, they can make sure software becomes vulnerability free. But there's tsunami in about 3 to 6, maybe 8 months is going to hit, where these models are going to be out in the wild. And we're going to start seeing a little bit of a reckoning because we haven't taken care of those foundational things that we should have been taking care of. And we're not going to have the visibility to see when an AI-enabled malactor is in your environment because they're going to move so fast in and out of your environment. It was a very eye-opening moment for me that we're going to have a period of time within the next 6 months. That's not long, right? There's going to be a tsunami of vulnerabilities being exploited, exploit paths being taken advantage by malactors. So I think it's time for us to roll up our sleeves and get busy.
No, 100%. Obviously, that's a dauntingly short window of time to get everything in alignment to make sure that we're ready for that eventuality. And it's only and I think one of the single statements that I think in the AI summit that really took me back is that it was kind of made as a passing comment, but even the kind of the host stepped back a minute and said, "I'm going to repeat that for everyone." And the statement was, the AI models that we're seeing now, the AI technology is the worst it will ever be.
Right.
As That's good right. as it is, as scary as it is, as much of a capable product as it is still the infancy. It's only going to improve. It's only going to pick up in speed and velocity and capability and functionality and ease of execution. Yeah. It's sometimes hard to fathom.
It is hard to fathom, especially when they're talking in the world of months when something becomes shelfware. Right. Anthropic is already talking about mythos as shelfware, ancient, right? So, I mean, if I were to take one thing out of day one. This is only day one, by the way, right? Leaders can't operate at the security pace of the past. Those days are gone. The things that we thought were the right pace to be able to protect our organizations from risk, we can't be operating at yesterday's pace. We can't afford to do that. And if you've neglected the basics, you better start turning up the heat on those now and really make an effort to do the core things that we should have been doing for the past 2 decades. Asset management, vulnerability management at high speed now, knowing your environment, knowing the identities, knowing what software has access to what, knowing what people have access to what. It's time to really buckle down and get back to the basics.
100%. And I think it's gone are the days where you could just hide in the vastness of the internet. We can't do that any longer. The systems are getting to the point where it will find the needle in the haystack within microseconds. And we don't want to be that needle that's unprotected when they come looking for our environments.
Well, everybody, this was day one sit rep from Manny and Jason here at Black Hat. Hopefully you enjoyed the quick overview. There was a lot today. A lot more that we can share in the future, but we wanted to give you a really quick insight into what Black Hat Day One was all about. Thanks, everybody.